Welcome back to a new AI tutorial. In this video we are going to talk about how we can create an user interface for chatting with large language models. So we are going to have an app where we can type in our prompts in our interface and get outputs from large language models with using both TKInter and LangChain. Let's start coding. I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code as the code editor in this tutorial, but you can use any code editor that you want, it doesn't matter. I'm going to create a file like TKInter LangChain.py, and now in here I'm going to say like our app. At the first place it's going to take the input, then it's going to use the large language model for generating a response, and then it's going to display the output from large language model. So for that we are going to create a TKInter interface where we can create our prompts and pass into the language model and get response from our AI app. So let's start coding it. At the first place we are going to import TKInter, and we are going to say from LangChain.large language models import OpenAI like this. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to initialize this large language model. Like I'm going to say large language model, and it's going to be equal to the OpenAI like this. And I'm not going to pass the API key in here. I'm going to use the shell for that. I'm going to show you the API key entering process too. Okay, so at the first place we are going to define a function to handle user input and get large language model response from the large language model that we initialized in here. And I'm going to name it like get large language model response. Next in here, firstly, let's mention that we are going to create an input box and output box in the later stages of this video. So we are going to be using them. At the first place, we are going to get the user's input from the input box. So user input is going to be input box dot get, and we are going to say 1.0 in here, and I will say TKInter end, and I'm going to use strip in here. We are going to define them later on using TKInter.text, but we are going to firstly write our function, and we are going to write an if statement in here. If user input, it ensures there is input from the user. Next we will say response is going to be, we are going to pass the user input to the large language model like this. Next up we are going to display the response in the output box that we are going to define. So for that we will say output box.config, and we are going to set the state like TKInter normal like this. So it's going to enable editing to insert text like this. Next up I'm going to say output box.delete. I'm going to say 1.0 like this, and I'm going to say TKInter.end. So this one is for clearing the previous content. Next up I will say output box insert, and I'm going to give the TKInter end like this, and I'm going to give the response like this. So this is for inserting the large language model response. And at the final we will say output box.config, and I'm going to set state TKInter disabled. So this is for disable anything about editing after displaying response. So now we can create our app. I will say root, and it's going to be equal to the TKInter.tk like this. This is the creation of the main application window. Next up I'm going to say root.title for setting a title like large language model app, and I'm going to set the size like root.geometry. I'm going to give like 500 to 500 like this. You can change this, it's completely up to you. You can try different values in here and see the difference. Next up I'm going to create a label to display instructions. I will say label, and it's going to be equal to the TKInter label. I'm going to give the root like this, and text is going to be enter your question for large language model. Next up we will say label.pack, and I'm going to set the pad y like 10 like this. Next up, we are going to create a text box for user input. Input box, I'm going to say TKInter text. We are going to give root, height is going to be 5. You can change this to, it's completely up to you. Width is going to be 40. And I will say input box dot pack and this to 10, like this. Great. Next up, we are going to create a label for the response. So I'm going to say response label, and I'm going to use TKInter label. Actually, it's going to be K, like this. And I'm going to say root. Next up, I'm going to say text is going to be response from the large language model. And I will say response label pack 10, like this. Next up, we are going to create a text area to display the response from the large language model. So for that, I will say output box that we just talked about in here, like this. We define the input box for our function. Now it's time for output box. So I will say this is going to be equal to the TKInter text. And I'm going to give root, height is going to be 10, width is going to be 40. Output box dot pack, I'm going to give 10, like this. Next up, I'm going to set the config in here, like this. State is going to be TKInter disabled. So it's going to be disabled for editing in here with this code. Next up, we are going to create a submit button for user to use when user uses the input box in here and wants to get an answer from the large language model. So for that, we will say submit button, and it's going to be equal to the TKInter button root, and we are going to say text is going to be get response. You can change this, it's up to you. You can set other things in here. It's going to be the thing that will display, and command is going to be the function that we defined in here, get large language model response. So for that, I will say get large language model response. Next up, I'm going to say submit button dot pack, and I'm going to set this like 10. And now we have a final step. It's the starting of the TKInter main loop. So I will say root dot main loop, like this. And now my app is completely ready. I'm going to summarize all this code after making this run. But firstly, I want to say that our app is ready, but we need to pass OpenAI API key for using it, for using the large language model. The window, buttons, text areas, everything is ready, but for using the language model, we need to get an API key from the OpenAI API Playground. So you can simply type OpenAI API Playground to the Google, and you can sign up from there to the API platform. When you sign up, they give you $5 and it's free to create an API key. So you can just get that API key. It starts with SK from this website. You can just Google this, and next you are going to be copying this and doing the operation that I'm going to show you right now. Again, OpenAI API Playground is the address that we want to visit for our OpenAI API key. And in here, after creating this, I'm going to open the terminal, and I'm going to say export OpenAI API key, and we are going to paste our key in here. I'm not going to share mine, I'm going to paste this, then I'm going to clear the terminal and I will be recording, but you need to paste your API key and hit enter in here. So my API key is ready right now, and the next step is going to be just running this program. I'm going to hit this button to run, and next up I have my app displayed on my screen right now. I'm going to be recording that screen in a second. So in here we have a really good looking app. It says enter your question for large language model on large language model app, and we can make inputs in here, and here is the section for the response from the large language model, and in here we can't make any change to the output, and the button we created get response is in here right now. So let's ask something like, what is the capital city of France? and we are going to get response with the button we submit in here. Now it didn't display the response because I made a typo there. I need to say insert instead of insert, like here. You just need to fix this. And now I'm going to save my file, I'm going to make this rerun, and I'm going to record the screen again. Okay, let's ask our question again. So I will say, what is the capital city of France? And I'm going to hit the get response button in here, and let's see our response from the large language model. So it returned the capital city of France is Paris, and we can't make any changes on that as we wanted. So it's working really good. Let's test out more. Like I'm going to say, give short information about Paris. Now I'm going to hit the get response again, and let's see our response. So our response is Paris is the capital and most populous city of France. It is known for its iconic landmarks such as the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame Cathedral, and the Louvre Museum. It is also a global center for fashion, art and culture, with famous fashion houses, art galleries, and museums scattered throughout the city. Paris is a major tourist destination, attracting millions of visitors each year to experience its beauty, history, and charm. Great, so when we enter a new prompt in here and say get response, our app correctly displays the new prompt response in here and deletes the previous one, and it's working smoothly. Great, let's summarize the app that we create and then we can finish this tutorial. So in here we make our imports. We import TKInter for the app and we create OpenAI in here for the large language model from LangChain. Next up, we define a function as get large language model response, where the user is going to use the input box for getting a response in the output box, and in here we get the user's input from the input box. Next, with this if statement, we say if there's input, then we create a response and display the response in here. Also, we delete the previous response. Next up, we create the main application window in here, and we give our app a title like large language model app, and we set the geometry in here, the app sizes. Next up, we create a label to display the instructions, and we create a text box for the user input, and we create a label in here for the response, and we create a text area for displaying the response from the large language model, and in here we create a submit button user to get the response from the large language model with the function we define in here, and at the final step we create this root.main loop line for starting the TKInter main loop. Thanks for watching. Let's get to the outro. Thanks for watching this AI tutorial. I have a playlist for AI and LangChain tutorials where I have more than 20 videos just like this one. You can reach that playlist from the cards of this video or from the link in the description. I'm sharing new data science videos every week on my channel. You can subscribe for more videos like this. Have a great day.